Enchanting sucks. Probably a wild take for me for a lot of viewers, and not a surprising one for others. Enchantments were introduced in the Adventure Update and have been a major part of the game's progression ever since, and honestly, I like the idea, a process where you can power up your tools not only with pure buffs but cool effects that add unique utility. Sign me up! However, now that they've been in the game for a while, I still like them. Wait, hold on, you say with a finger on your chin, this video is titled Enchanting Sucks. If you still like them, then obviously you don't think it sucks. And with that, I understand your confusion, but to understand what I'm going to talk about, I need you to reconsider the specific wording I used here. Enchantments aren't entirely the problem. My issues lie mostly within enchanting itself. To demonstrate why I don't like its current implementation, I'll be breaking down my issues into segments. Then at the end, I'll try to provide what I think would make for a more interesting enchanting process. Also, for the record, this is taking the place of the mod pack review for this week due to the fact that I am playing GregTech New Horizon as my next pack, so that's going to be taking a fat minute. Also, Terraformer Craft will also be happening, but at a later time. So kick back and relax as we dive deeper into enchanting and its mechanics. Also, if you like what you see here today, consider hitting the like and subscribe button, or don't. You do you, I'm not your mom. Let's begin. Problem 1. XP and everything to do with it. When XP was introduced, players like myself had their minds racing with what this feature would bring to the table. XP is usually associated with leveling up and becoming stronger, so maybe Minecraft would be getting proper RPG mechanics. Maybe we can get classes, learn spells, and fight more bosses. None of that obviously happened, thank the powers responsible, but you get the point. XP held a lot of potential, but when it was introduced, it was only used for enchanting tools, an interesting start, but it was only a matter of time before we saw what else it did. And then nothing happened. Full disclosure before I continue, I'm glad we didn't get RPG mechanics in the game, but I just wanted to point this out that this is a very underutilized mechanic. Outside of the anvil for some reason, XP remains to be only used as the primary resource you are using when enchanting tools and books. Which leads me to this question. Why is it even here then? The game is already about resource collection, and I'm sure there could have been something else used as the cost for enchanting, but instead of making enchanting more directly involved with the game loop by requiring maybe a mixture of resources, you just use mystical funny points that are literally only used for this exact purpose. It feels really detached from the rest of the game loop. Where the modern game is almost entirely designed around searching the world for a resource, XP just kinda happens when you do a thing. Yet it's so important that people make mob farms from spawners just to get enough XP to enchant their books and items in the first place, which farming a mob spawner is easily the most boring chore in the entire game. Standing in place to farm an arbitrary resource, slaying things on a conveyor belt, is inherently boring and awful by design. If any of you find just standing still and clicking once in a while fun, I have serious concerns for your mental health. Like, you might want to admit yourself, I'm sorry. Point is, I feel like XP as it's currently designed doesn't really mesh well with the rest of the game and feels boring to play around. On to the next problem. Problem 2. RNG-centered progression. Let me clarify something real quick. RNG progression can be fun when done right. Minecraft itself has a lot of RNG-dictated factors for progression that I don't find particularly annoying. Ore generation, where you spawn, dungeon locations, a lot of the game is dictated by RNG. But the one thing that keeps me from jumping ship is that with the RNG comes some level of predictability and control. Spawn in a desert, walk in a direction to find a livable biome or village. Biomes don't last forever. Looking for diamonds, best water levels below -50. If you strip mine at a consistent level, you are more likely to run into them. Looking for the stronghold? Sure, the distance might be random, but the Eyes of Ender will lead you directly to it. Point is that a lot of Minecraft's RNG can be in some way handled by players' actions. That being said, enchanting RNG is completely out of the player's control. Even though the enchanting table does tell you what each button does, you, the player, cannot dictate what the table offers you in any way. The most you can do is put up enough bookshelves to get max level enchants. That's it. You can't even re-roll the enchantments. Once an item has been put in, its enchantment options are locked until you enchant something. Sometimes the enchantments offers you are good, and sometimes it offers you Bane of Arthropods. And hey, would you believe it that once you enchant it, you lose levels, so guess who's going back to the mob farm for another hour? There is nothing you can do to dictate what the table offers you. Now, I know someone is going to tell me about villager trading, which I can see why you'd bring it up. However, it's also RNG. It's just easier to deal with RNG. Where the enchanting table locks your enchantment options until you enchant something, villager trading only requires you to break the lectern and replace it to re-roll what the villager offers. Though again, this is still primarily RNG dictated progression system, it's just less annoying. One taking you a whole hour to farm up levels to get something you don't want, the other one takes 2 seconds. It is also worth noting though that Mojang found the trading so problematic that they are actively nerfing that shit, so So much for the optimal thing being trading. Also, this might be a hot take and a half, but if abusing the mechanical minutia of a game is required to do what you want, wouldn't that imply the dev intended way is still faulty? To give you guys a better picture of what I'm trying to say, like, there's a difference between just clicking a button and it does the thing, and like, running on a 30-minute quest to go find a random NPC out in the wilderness just to get the trades you want out of it instead of engaging with the actual enchanting table. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is RNG-based progression that a player has near zero control over is not a good system. So let's just move on to the third and final problem. Problem 3. Enchantment meta is cheeks. Let me present a hypothetical to you. You have 2 pickaxes and you want to enchant both of them. My question to you is, what enchantments would you apply to both of these pickaxes? Go ahead and pause here if you need time. I'll wait. You good? Alright, if your answers contained mending on both, unbreaking, efficiency, silk touch, and fortune, congratulations, you've already proven my soon-to-be-discussed point. What enchantments a player chooses has remained relatively untouched since mending was added. While new weapons have gotten their own enchantment sets, and boots got swift sneak, which is good for builders, the basic tools and armor haven't received anything meaningful in the slightest for almost over a decade now. Protection remains to be the best enchantment for defense. Pickaxes will always want silk touch or fortune. Axes and farming tools, because YouTube's AI moderation will misconstrue what I said instead of the actual tool name, have nothing special for them, and mending on everything. I'm gonna say something that's gonna rile up some folks. The enchantment options are boring. There's nothing wrong with having some basic standard upgrades, but for a system that has the capacity to bring customizability and unique enchantment builds, it really does just feel like the enchantments we get on our default gear is painfully boring compared to newer additions. Tridents give you flight in the rain and high-speed water traversal, the mace lets you pogo jump around and gives you an AoE blast, crossbows get multi-shot, with the other enchants infecting those arrows making an oddly synergistic weapon. Meanwhile, sword gets fire aspect, pickaxe gets more of thing, armor protect. Now I get why this is the case. They want to incentivize you hunting down these weapons and objects off mobs and dungeons, which, fine. But, like, why is it that our iconic default items get nothing? I mean, we haven't had an alternative mining tool in forever, so how we mine in the game has remained stagnant since inception. Then we got the 2 enchantment problem children. One for being so good is a requirement, and the other for being so bad that it literally bricks your item upon receiving it. I am of course talking about Mending and Bane of Arthropods respectively. Mending has to be one of the most damaging enchantments the game has ever introduced. For those of you who don't know, Mending gives your tool the ability to repair itself when you receive experience. You get a 2 durability point per 1 XP point ratio. This is a guaranteed payout. While it will make your leveling process potentially maybe a little slower, it makes your tool literally unbreakable unless you straight up neglect to mend it. You can apply mending to damn near anything you want that has durability on it. This enchantment is busted, because unless you for some reason want to use mineral blocks, it completely removes the need to find more important minerals in any capacity. You don't need to make more diamond pickaxes or to use the anvil. The enchantment literally fixes the tool for you. This enchantment was added because people didn't like the anvil's scaling XP requirement. So instead of doing the logical thing of fixing the system's scaling issue, they instead opted to add an entirely new enchantment that would make this feature obsolete. The logic here astounds me. Then we got the infamous Bane of Arthropods. Unless you've been living under a rock, this enchantment is widely regarded as the single worst enchantment in the entire game. Bane of Arthropods gives you increased damage against arthropod creatures. Why is this bad? Because there's exactly 5 arthropods in the fucking game. To give you context, Smite works on every undead mob, of which there are 14. Sharpness works universally while doing a little less damage to undead mobs like Smite would. Bane of Arthropods only affects 5 mobs, of which only 3 are hostile: spiders, cave spiders, and silverfish. The other 2 being bees and endermites. And since those last 2 don't have a reason to be killed, that leaves you with 3 genuine use cases regardless. Needless to say, the use cases of Bane are extremely limited and not worth the enchantment slot. Even worse is you can't apply another damage increasing enchantment to your sword after this is on it. It literally bricks your weapon, so we got one enchantment that's so unfathomably busted it breaks the actual game loop once you get it, and another that pretty much means you gotta trash your weapon. Cool, great. Now, I could talk about balance of enchantments all day, but I think there's genuinely more pressing matters with the system at hand that need addressing. The only reason these 2 enchantments got mentioned was because they are the 2 most violent exceptions in my opinion. And now, after all these complaints, it may seem like I genuinely hate enchantments as a concept, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I love the idea, and I think having a progression system that isn't just making a new tier of armor is very cool, and I think the game would benefit from the customizability it brings. I just think the way it's set up currently isn't very good. That being said, I did mention at the start of this video that I had an idea how to improve the system, so let's talk about that. Now before I continue, I just want to say that I understand that I can't speak for everyone. My idea is really only the opinion of one guy minimum, and there might be other ways the player base would like to see a rework. Hell, maybe you might even like the way that it is right now. Also, I obviously can't code a mod within a week, so I won't exactly have solid visual demonstrations, so if you just want to listen to this part and multitask with something else, that's fine. Enough nonsense, let's propose the idea. First off, let's discuss objectives for this rework. 1. I want this rework to fit within the core game loop better without losing the magical theming. 2. I want the player to have more direct control on how their tools are upgraded with RNG added on as a fun extra that won't ruin your progress. 3. I want to rework the 2 problem children specifically. I could discuss all my new enchantment ideas, but if I did, this video wouldn't be able to be released on time because I'm currently moving, so there's that. With the objectives listed, let's begin. Step 1. Current RNG system in XP? Trash it. XP, in my opinion, only exists for enchanting, and the new process I'm going to present doesn't really require it, so get rid of it. This does mean that the anvil would also no longer have an XP requirement. Material costs might need to be tweaked in light of this, but the fact that you are using materials to repair your tools already puts enchantments closer to the core game loop. Wow, that was a long sentence. Step 2. Introduce new system. Enchanting would now be based on crafting enchanted books instead of RNG bullshit. You put a book in the center, and then you put corresponding resources around the book. For example, maybe Fortune would require 4 diamonds and 2 of iron and gold ore chunks respectively. Now you might be wondering how you get higher tiers of enchantments. Well, this would be the first iteration of a multi-layered crafting recipe. You would use your newfangled enchanted book in the center and craft the next tier. Maybe you can make the recipes unique per level, maybe make Fortune eventually require emeralds to get max level. Now this system might seem a little weird, and you might be wondering why I even bother using the enchanting table, which I'll get to that later, but check this out. Since Mojang has been pushing for adventuring in their game, you could tie in specific resources for specific enchantments. Like what if you needed breeze rods or wind charges to make the respiration enchantment? Maybe not the most solid of examples, but you can see its application. If Mojang wants to further incentivize exploring, I think this would be a fun way to do it. Also, this wouldn't be too alien of a concept anyways, because some dungeons already offer exclusive enchantments, so all you're doing is basically further increasing their importance. Step 3. Introduce new use of enchanting table. To simplify my explanation of this, we're basically going to take the utility of applying enchantments on the anvil and instead move it to the table, so the anvil can no longer do it. That way you are completely unable to enchant anything unless you have the table for it. And of course, since there's no XP, this means all you're doing is crafting the book, and then you're going to enchant, and that is it. However, I did say I'd leave a small amount of RNG to have a little bit of a fun twist on it. The RNG, instead of dictating what you get and otherwise making you get enchantments you don't want and breaking your entire item, would instead come in 2 simple forms that are purely positive for the player. If the applied enchantment is not at max level, it would have the chance to go ahead and give the next level up from what you apply. For example, looting 2 could change to looting 3. If the enchantment is at max level, it would have a rare chance to not consume the enchantment book at all and apply the max level enchantment free of charge. Mind you, this is an incredibly rare chance, but these odds are based off the bookshelf count, much like how the current system scales enchantment strength off of bookshelves. These might be a little wacky, but I think it certainly beats losing your progress because you got the single worst enchantments for what you need. And lastly, step 4. Rework Mending and Bane of Arthropods. Starting with the big hot take first, we're going to nerf Mending. Since the anvil would no longer have the XP requirement and be based entirely off of material cost, Mending is now what I'd call entirely overkill. So instead of Mending having a guaranteed payout with 1 level, Mending would now have 2 levels where it's a chance to repair the tool upon orb pickup. Yes, the orbs would still exist, but they would be Mending orbs that only show up if a piece of gear in your inventory has Mending. By the way, when I say repair, I don't mean repair to full, I mean repair the portion like it currently does now. Now it's worth noting that I'm no balancing genius by any means. I'm a random person on the internet after all, what do I know? But I think personally, I'd put it at like a 20% chance at base level, and the second level would be like a 33% chance. That way, it's more of a method to reduce durability usage than it is a way to completely avoid using resources to repair it. Would it still be possible to fully repair it with the traditional mob farm? Kinda, but you'd be needing burner swords and it would take longer, so generally it'd be more inefficient to do this. Since the anvil is now without an XP cost, this not only makes repairing at the anvil more viable, but it also further incentivizes engaging in the game's resource gathering aspects. Now, as for Bane of Arthropods, obviously this thing needs to be buffed like no one's business. Problem is that the name itself implies its uses, so to fix this, we pretty much gotta trash its current identity. So instead of Bane of Arthropods, we instead call it Druid's Bane. A name that's fresh, but still kinda nods at what it once was. Instead of being purely for arthropods, it's now also for beasts. Bears, Ravagers, Guardians, Phantoms, if it's got animal-like qualities, it's impacted, and as a little tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact it was meant to be a pig, let's toss in creepers for good measure. With a wider range of mobs it would impact, this is what I think it'd need to be seen as at least usable, and hey, it would make for a nifty swift way to farm livestock. And that's pretty much it. Admittedly, I could propose new enchantment ideas, but if I did, this video would be way longer than its current time, and long enough to make this video simply take too much time for me to even consider it. So just presume that if we added some enchantments that shake up our stagnant enchantment meta, it'd be healthy for the game. The point of the system I suggested is to maintain some degree of simplicity that the game is known for, all the while reworking it entirely to be more in line with the gameplay. I know this might not be the fix for everyone, but hey, it's better than not suggesting anything or leaving the feature stagnant and untouched for a decade. Mojang. So if you're still here at this point, thank you so much for watching. I know this rant was kind of lengthy, but this has been a long overdue video concept for me. So it's nice to have it dealt with. Also, as a heads up, I'm in the process of moving, so my upload schedule is going to be scuffed for a bit. Anyways, since it's been kind of a longer video, again, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and until next time, this has been the Bottom Dweller. Actually, now I'm thinking about it at the end of the video, how does Steve even enchant anything? The book is just lines. He's illiterate.